I grew up in southern Minnesota, and this happened in the late 1980s at my Grandma Ruth's place on the edge of Willow Creek, a little farm town fringed by soy fields, cattail marsh, and a slow brown creek under a veil of willows. My mom told me this, and I still get chills. Grandma's farmhouse sat at the very end of a gravel road, no neighbors beyond, just the marsh and a stand of old cottonwoods. It was quiet in a way that made your ears ring. That summer, my mom's cousin had a little boy named Aiden, 3 years old, pale and bright-eyed, always darting around like a sparrow. One afternoon, Aiden vanished. The grown-ups fanned out across the property, calling and calling. Near sundown, they found him under the low willows by the creek, half hidden in the tangle. He was breathing, eyes open but vacant. He said he's gone to play by the water and didn't remember anything after that. That evening, everything broke loose. Aiden's body started jerking in awful fits, his back arching in ways a child shouldn't. His cries sounded wrong, like there were two voices in his throat. Grandma sent my uncle racing into town, but out there a phone call didn't mean help would arrive fast. A family friend, Father Daniel, the priest from St. Bridget's 2 towns over, arrived and began prayers, blessing water and tracing a cross over Aiden. Before he could finish, Aiden shot off the bed and bolted for the door with a speed no one thought possible for a toddler. They dragged him back from the same willow stand by the creek. Outside, Father Daniel took Aiden's dad aside and said quietly, "This is beyond vet. You need a priest who's trained for this." By the time my uncle rolled back with a doctor, the seizures had ebbed and surged like tides, and the doctor could only say, "Get him to Mayo." They took Aiden to the ER, tests, scans, nothing. No neurological disorder fits this, the doctor muttered. Sedatives barely touched him. After 3 days of hell, the hospital social worker suggested a specialist the diocese sometimes used. A priest exorcist drove up from Chicago, Father Thomas with a nun from his parish and a sacristan. He listened to everything and then said the strangest thing I've ever heard. 7 spirits have set their eyes on him. Each maimed, one without a hand, one without a leg, one blind, one deaf. They keep together. They've made a home by your creek near the willows. He stood at Grandma's fridge, tapped the little rectangle that was the marsh. Here. He insisted on 3 consecutive sessions at high noon in the backyard. Whatever happens, he told the nun and the sacristan, do not stop praying. Keep the litany of the saints going. Keep the bell ringing. Day 1. They marked off a space in the grass and sat Aiden and his father inside. Father Thomas began the rite with a crucifix in one hand and a small vial of holy water in the other. The nun prayed the rosary in a steady cadence. The sacristan rang a small handbell, stroke by stroke. The moment the prayers began, a wind rose out of the marsh and hit the back of the house like a freight train. The cottonwoods thrashed, shingles lifted, the kitchen windows rattled like teeth in a glass. Then, silence. Aiden sagged, exhausted. Day 2, the same, only harder. By sunset, Aiden seemed calmer. He ate, took a few steps, even held Grandma's hand and met her eyes. That night, Father Thomas barely slept. At dawn, he said he's dreamed 7 dark figures stood by the creek bank, warning him not to return. You won't finish. He went anyway. Day 3, he redrew the boundary in the yard. No matter what, he told them, do not stop. When the rite began, the sky went a bruised green, though it was a clear June noon. From the back steps we watched, frozen, as the willow stand by the creek bent in two, every branch driven flat to the ground, as if a giant palm were pressing down. The bell faltered. The nun's voice hiccuped into silence. Father Thomas barked for them to keep praying, and they tried. But terror jams the throat. What happened next still wakes me. Something no one could see lifted Aiden straight up inside that marked space, folded him like a rag doll, and slammed him to the turf. The ground jumped. Then everything went quiet. So quiet you could hear geese high overhead and, through the open kitchen window, the ticking of the clock. Aiden lived, but after that day he never spoke again. He never walked again. His head grew disproportionately large. His little body stayed small and stiff. My aunt and uncle took him to every specialist they could find, from Minneapolis to Boston. No one could name it. No treatment made sense. For the next 27 years, Aiden was simply there. And every night, as soon as the sun went down, someone else was there too. Neighbors, delivery guys, cousins, anyone who came after dark saw it. A tall black figure at the edge of the yard, sometimes on the porch in the shadow by the swing, sometimes in the back room doorway. Not moving, just watching. People stopped visiting. Those who did would have suffocating dreams, wake with fevers that broke by morning, or spend the night in the bathroom for no medical reason. In 2003, Aiden died quietly in his sleep. After the funeral, the black figure was never seen again. The house lightened, like a pressure had lifted. The willows slowly sprang back, wild and messy as ever. There's one more piece. In the middle of those years, Aiden's father and my uncle drove east to see an elderly Monsignor in a small New Jersey parish. Someone people swore could untangle the worst cases. Bedridden, he couldn't travel, but he listened and then handed them 2 sacramentals, a small vial of holy water with blessed salt and a St. Benedict medal. For 7 days, he said, mix a pinch of the salt into the holy water, have the boy drink it and bathe his forehead. When you're done, pour the remainder into running water. And this medal, keep it where you can see it on the way home. When you arrive, place it under the boy's pillow. They started before dawn. Just a mile from Grandma's road, on asphalt they knew like the backs of their hands. The car bucked hard, as if they'd hit an invisible speed bump. The medal, clipped to the sun visor, snapped loose, skittered somewhere into the dash. They pulled over, took the car apart as best they could, combed the ditch with a flashlight. They never found it. To this day, my uncle swears the road itself rose up under them just to shake that medal loose. That's how my mom told it. I've been back to the farmhouse many times. It looks like any other old place now. Peeling paint, a creaking swing, a creek that smells like mud in July. But if you're there alone at dusk, you'll find yourself glancing toward the willows without meaning to, and you'll walk a little faster to the back door without knowing why. It was the early 90s at a Catholic summer camp in the Midwest. A cluster of cabins and a chapel beside a lake that held its own fog like a secret. Thursday night storms had emptied the place. Most of the boys had gone home for Saturday. Only 2 stayed in the long bunk room, Evan and his best friend Zach. The camp chaplain, Father Martin, had said night prayer with them in the chapel, then gone to his cottage. Lightning made the lake flash like hammered tin. A little past midnight, someone pounded the bunkhouse door. "Even!" a voice snapped, crisp, familiar. "Open up!" Evan shook himself awake. Zach snored softly, face half buried in his pillow. In the bright wash of lightning, Evan saw the outline at the door. Roman collar, the thick silhouette of a cassock under a raincoat. "Father Martin?" Evan called. "Move!" the voice said. "There's a wedding reception, late night supper. Wake Zach, we're going." It sounded right. It looked right. But as Evan slid the bolt and pulled open the door, a smell hit him. Sweet sour, like meat turned under a light. The figure's smile, lit for a heartbeat by lightning, showed too many teeth. "Hurry," it said. "We're late." Zach stood, swaying, eyes glazed the way people look when they're more asleep than not, and obeying only the echo of a command. They stumbled out into the rain. A van sat idling under pines. The priest climbed in. Evan hoisted Zach behind him, then froze with one foot on the bumper. The smell. It was inside the van too, thick and cloying. "Leave him," the priest said without turning. "He's not needed." They drove in a silence laced with windshield wiper metronome. After 30 minutes that felt like 3 hours, they pulled up near the old municipal crematory, a brick building the county had mothballed after the new facility opened. "Wait here," the man said. He walked around back and reappeared dragging a plastic-wrapped shape. Blood had seeped into the contractor bag and dried to a tacky brown. He was drenched with sweat, as if he'd run a mile. "Pray Psalm 23, he said. "Pray out loud." "I don't know it all," Evan said. His voice felt like someone else's in his mouth. He clutched his fingers together. "In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit." The man's face rippled. The laugh that came out was wrong, wet and tearing at the ends. The plastic sagged like a breath being taken, and through a rip, Evan saw a face he knew. Zach. Limp, grey, eyes partly open to nothing. "This is tonight's feast," the thing said. the last word sliding into a growl. The prayer softened the meat. It shed shape like a shrug. Black fur rolled up its arms, jaws lengthened, nails clicked on metal. A massive dog doubled the van's darkness and pressed its muzzle to the corpse. Barking flayed from the trees like sparks. A pack flowed out of the shadows, tails stiff as if they were spears. One darted forward and sank teeth into Evan's calf. He fell, scrambled, slipped on wet needles, and ran for the chapel. Only door he could imagine that would open. It did. He slammed inside, locked it, and dragged himself onto the side altar, clutching at the statue of St. Joseph for balance. The dogs threw themselves at the wood, claws scrabbling. The statue rocked, tilted, and with a sound like a knuckle cracking the head, broke off and struck the marble with a hollow clop. The bell, somewhere in the rafters, chimed a single note. Then, nothing. He woke in daylight. His mother was there, hands on his face, crying. The sheriff's cruiser idled in the drive. Zach had been found before dawn in the scrub near the camp. People talked. The chaplain took it like a blow, said he'd never come to the bunkhouse. Some didn't believe him. Later, when Evan could stand without seeing the room pitch, the parish priest told him what he already knew in his bones. Sometimes the mask is the point. Months after, Father Martin fell asleep at the wheel on a straight two-lane under a blue sky. The car went through a fence and kissed a tree. Evan went to the funeral and could not bring himself to stand near the casket. "15 years ago in Evanston County, North Carolina, the bus let Luis off close to 1 a.m. at a crossroads where the light made a pool, and the rest was a night that belonged to insects. His duffel bit into his shoulder. He was thinking about the girl his parents had in mind, about the shirt he'd wear and the bottle he'd bring her father, about the way his brothers had clapped his back before he left the city and told him not to be an idiot. No rideshare pings, no taxis. The road ran black and thin between scrub pines. From a long way off, he heard the burr of a small engine and saw a jittering lantern's halo. It was a farm van, flatbed, low sides, the kind that carries hay or kids to Little League. On it lay a long white shape, neat and very still. "Need a lift?" the driver said, not unkindly. "I'm headed your way." Luis looked at the shape, then at the road. He told himself it was a county errand, and county business didn't care who got spooked. He climbed up, sat on the side bench, tried not to look. Old Miller Road is one of those lanes people talk around rather than about. It runs between a canal on one side and a stand of second growth on the other. The tree's low branches make shapes that only exist in headlights and childhood. The van turned onto it, tires ticking over patches of replaced tar like slow clock hands. The driver made a few comments, weather, gas prices, and then let the silence gather. The first woman crossed near the creek. A shape in a black veil suddenly made visible in the van's beams. She did not look at them. She simply stepped from left to right and was gone into the trees. Then another. Then another. Each time, the driver's hands tightened on the wheel until the tendons stood out like ropes. Luis turned to look behind him and saw 4 women in black sitting on the back bench, veil over face, hands gloved, still as photographs. He did not know how long they had been there. He did not wait to find out how long they wished to stay. He jumped. Gravel clawed his palms and knees. His shin split on a culvert pipe. He ran anyway, the van shrinking and the women somehow growing in his mind. He ran with the old prayers of his childhood battering his ribs. In the high dark of the soybeans to his left, he heard something like wood breaking, one sharp crack, then another. When he crept back, the van was parked crooked. The shrouded body lay where it had been. The canvas bag beside it, somebody's, was upright as if someone had checked for contents and put it back exactly. The driver was gone. The women were gone. The night seemed to wait for his next move. He didn't make it home. He made it 2 counties over to a farm kitchen, where a woman with grey at her temples gave him a glass of water and said, "You're safe here." In the blue of morning, he took the first bus back and went straight to the sheriff's office. The clerk who handled releases had a mug that said "Mama Bear" in pink letters. "Any bodies released last night?" he asked. She checked a screen, then a ledger. "No," she said. "But we did sign out a decapitated John Doe 4 or 5 days back. 4 ladies came with the paperwork in order, veils like they'd come from Mass. Brought their own van, we released to them." She took a sip and didn't seem to notice his face. Months later, in town, Lewis saw the driver. He was barefoot, shirtless even though it was cold enough to see breath. He was talking at no one and at something at the same time. Eyes gone down some hall nobody else could see.